So there are a number of ingredients you can use in your recipe, of course. I'm going to start off with a head of green cabbage. I'm also going to add some celery, some baby carrots. I have a 1 pound bag of baby carrots. I'm going to use some garlic, some bell peppers. You can use whatever color bell pepper you like. I happen to have green, yellow, and orange. I'm using an onion because I love onions and they have a lot of health properties. I also have a part of a red onion that I use for a different recipe, so I'll probably throw some of that in there. The base of this soup will be broth, so you can either use chicken broth or vegetable broth, really any broth of your choice. I'm going to use chicken broth for the flavor. So this isn't vegan because I'm using chicken broth. If you wanted this to be completely vegan, then of course you would just use vegetable broth, or you could use water. I like to use chicken broth, and I buy the 33% less sodium chicken broth. This contains per serving 570 mgs of sodium, and there are 4 servings per container, 4 cups. Now, I wouldn't be too upset using this, even though I do watch the amount of sodium I consume because I'm lowering my blood pressure without using drugs, because this crock pot of soup is going to be more than 4 servings. So this container only contains 4 servings, but these vegetables will release liquids, and if I need to add more liquid during the cooking process, then I'll add water, which doesn't have sodium. The other option is to use unsalted chicken broth. It has less flavor, of course, because it only has 35 mgs of sodium. And which one you use, it really determines on your other ingredients. So the tomatoes is another option. I love using tomatoes in my cooked dishes. The lycopene in cooked tomatoes is very healthy for many people. And I do try to be sure to always buy no sodium added, no salt added canned tomatoes. These happen to be crushed tomatoes, a 28-ounce can. It contains 15 milligrams of sodium. Some sodium does occur naturally in vegetables like tomatoes and celery. And there are 13 servings in this container. So if you don't have no salt tomatoes and you just have regular sodium added tomatoes, then maybe that would be a reason for you to use the unsalted broth, because you have the salt in the tomatoes to balance it out. The other option you have with using this broth, or instead of using this broth, is to use these Lipton soup mixes. They are very delicious. That's why I bought beef and onion. But after looking at the ingredients, I decided not to use these, and I'm probably just going to give them away to my niece. They contain some ingredients that I don't want to eat, like soy. But they both contain a good bit of sodium per serving, 640 mgs, and there are about 8 servings per container. So if you use this, which it would be absolutely delicious, then you could probably use this with water to season your broth. Or if you're going to do like me and not use this, then I'm going to use broth in my crushed tomatoes. But again, it's your personal choice because it's your personal soup. You can make it however you like. In addition to using crushed tomatoes, I'm also using a little bit of tomato paste. This will help thicken it up. This has 70 mgs of sodium. I probably will use a tablespoon or less of this. And I love this in a tube. It's so much easier than using tomato paste in those little cans. I never use the whole can, then I have to freeze it or do something else with it. So I think I'm going to enjoy using the tube of tomato paste. I can open it up right now to look. Yep, tomato paste. The next thing we have is our seasoning. So I like a variety of seasonings. If you've ever seen any of my cooking videos, you know the basic seasonings I like to use for everything. So for this, I'm going to be using thyme leaves, garlic powder, black pepper, smoked paprika. I'm using poultry seasoning. I don't know if I'm going to use poultry seasoning or my mushroom seasoning. I found this umami mushroom seasoning blend at Target. And I've used Trader Joe's mushroom seasoning before, and I remember I really liked it. So I would pick one or the other, mushroom seasoning or poultry seasoning. They both probably are extremely delicious. I have some celery flakes, some onion powder, and I have no salt. This is a no salt, sodium-free seasoning. It does contain potassium. That is the main ingredient in it. It has 640 mgs of potassium. So if you're cooking for someone who has kidney disease or kidney issues, then they may have been told by their doctor to control the amount of potassium or not have too much potassium. And in that case, I wouldn't use no salt. A lot of people that are lowering their salt intake because of blood pressure issues also will have kidney issues. So it's a fine line when you're cooking to determine the best way to season the food for the people you're cooking for. So keep that in mind as you cook your food. And so what I'm going to do first is wash my vegetables, give them a chop, and then toss them in my crock pot with my broth and my tomatoes, season up, and then let it go. And we'll talk after we do that. I am going to wash my vegetables with white vinegar and water, as you see me do often. So let's go to the sink and get these vegetables cleaned. So I am getting all of my vegetables in a big bowl to soak in cool water with vinegar in my sink. You want to take your canned crushed tomatoes, check the expiration date, make sure they're not expired, rinse it off with water just to get off any dust, and then you want to open your can. And I might be the last person on earth that doesn't have an electric can opener, but just use what you have. You want to be very careful with that sharp top and make sure you dispose of it safely. So I wrote out the recipe on the screen for you so you can take a screenshot. To my slow cooker, I've added my 32-ounce container of low sodium chicken stock, my 28-ounce can of no salt crushed tomatoes, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. I added my 16-ounce bag of carrots, but you could also use frozen mixed vegetables instead. And then I added 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, onion powder, poultry seasoning. I also added in 2 teaspoons of thyme, 2 teaspoons of celery flakes, and 1/4 teaspoon of my no salt substitute and black pepper. But the amount of seasonings here you use can be to your taste. So just use a little bit less and then you're going to taste it along the way and you can always add more later. My slow cooker is on and set to high at this point so my tomato sauce can cook before I put the other vegetables in. I like for my tomatoes to cook a bit. And I have my veggies now all chopped up, my cabbage, my bell peppers, my red onion, my garlic, and celery. You can use a proportion of these vegetables that you like. And now I'm just going to add them all to my slow cooker. So my tomatoes and carrots have been cooking down with the seasonings. You can see how it's reduced some in the crock pot. And as it reduces, that flavor intensifies, which is absolutely delicious. So I'm adding my cabbage and then all of my other vegetables. I love the color rainbow of all the variety of vegetables I'm using here. Replacing 1 or 2 meals a day with a big bowl of this cabbage soup can absolutely help a person shed weight because it is so low calorie and it is very filling because of the fiber in all of the vegetables. But even if you're not trying to lose weight, if you just want to have this as a delicious recipe, you will absolutely enjoy it. It's very comforting and flavorful. So definitely give this recipe a try. Now, you can cook this for anywhere between 3 to 5 hours. Everything in it is cooked when we put it in. So it's just a matter of cooking the vegetables down to the texture you like. So you'll notice that I stirred my vegetables when I put it in, and then I let it cook down some, and then now I'm giving it another stir to make sure the vegetables on the top can cook through in the flavorful broth as well. I like to cook my soup for about 2.5 hours after I put the cabbage in to let it cook down well, but some people might like their cabbage cooked down even longer, so you may want to cook yours for 4 hours or 5 hours. So if you stir the soup every hour, then you'll be able to check the tenderness of the cabbage and the level of seasoning to see if you want to add more seasoning. In the bottom section of the screen, I have several seasonings you might want to use instead of the ones I did in this video. It's always great to mix it up so that you don't get tired of eating this delicious cabbage soup. You can eat it oftentimes throughout the year when you feel you want to lean up and drop a couple of pounds. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel.